So I was asked to go into more detail on how to do the color tinting technique with crayons. And so this series is going to be just that. In the description below, you will find a PDF download with 3 snowmen that you can download and print off to make this wall hanging that we're going to make. So we're going to start with just a picture that is printed off and make a cute design. So come along and let's get started. As we're setting things up, maybe in the meantime, you can hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know the next time I upload a new technique. Hello, this is Jackie with Jackie Russell Creates, and I am here today to teach you the crayon or tinting, color tinting technique. And there's a few things that you're going to need. You're going obviously to need some kind of pattern. You can use any embroidery pattern. You can find some outline things on the internet. You can use those. I will be supplying these templates for this course. I'm going to be making mug rugs out of these, but you could use them for a wall hanging, add into a quilt, whatever type project that you would like to use them in. You're also going to need some plain white fabric. You don't want to have any texture on this, so you don't want white on white or anything else like that. You want just plain white fabric. You could also use cream fabric. That's just going to alter the colors of your crayons. I'm using 9-inch squares to fit our project on. Then you're going to need a Pigma Micron 01. It's a really fine tip to be able to trace your design onto your fabric. Then you're also going to need an ultra fine Sharpie, or this is optional. We'll talk more about this later on in the course. You're also going to need some floss. I use a lot of DMC floss. You can also get some Aurifil. This is Aurifil wool floss that I use for embroidery. So something to use for your embroidery. You're going to need crayons. Now, no, you don't have to have this big a box. You can get the bigger box. You can get the smaller box. I do recommend a bigger box. That way when you're doing your shading, you have multiple tints and tones to choose from of that color. You're also going to make sure you need white. You cannot buy a package of just plain white, but you will use a lot of white crayon for this technique. You're going to need a light source. Now, I made this light box. It is just a shadow box. My husband drilled a hole in the end, and I just fed some white or clear Christmas lights through it. You can, hang up in a window. Any way you can be able to trace your pattern. Another thing that I learned is, some people use a glass container or a plastic container, and then they just take their cell phone, flash the flashlight on, then they put it inside or underneath, and then you're able to trace your design on that way. So however you can be able to trace. If you have a printer, you can actually take it and print right onto your fabric. That will also be an option for you. And then I do recommend some tape just to be able to hold your pattern or your fabric down to your pattern. Then another thing that I recommend is getting some sandpaper. I like to use the 220 grit to the 320 grit. It is very fine sandpaper, but it's got enough texture that it holds your fabric from moving while you're trying to color and tint your design, and it won't stretch out that fabric. So those are the basic supplies that you need to start color tinting technique. So now let's get started in tracing our patterns onto our fabric. So now we're going to start tracing our pattern. So I like to tape my pattern down to my light source. Then I take my fabric and I lay it over my design, and I like to tape it down and smooth it out, but don't stretch it, but you want it to be nice and smooth. And then you're going to take the Pigma Micron, and you're going to trace your design. Now, you don't have to do the fine details at this moment. You just want the base outline. I like to use the Pigma because it won't erase off, but it's thin enough that can be covered later on when we finish our project. So I'm not going to do his eyes, and I'm not going to do his brows or his nose or his mouth. I'm going to do his nose. And so some tips while you're tracing, if you want to trace or have all the design per se on there, if it's a dot like the buttons or his eyes, don't draw the little circle, just put your pen down and make a little dot, but don't hold it there, because if you hold, the fabric is gonna soak up the ink. It's just gonna keep spilling it out. When you cut your fabric, you want to make sure you leave a couple inches from the edge of your design to be able to sew, but as well as put your hoop on if you're going to do the embroidery. So right now I am doing the snowman that has the birds on it, and on his head is some branches. So I'm drawing the branches, and then there's some leaves. So I'm just putting a dot at the tip of the leaf. So I know where to do the embroidery. And then for the berries, I'm just doing a dot, so I know where to put the French knot when I start doing the embroidery. I like to have the whole design per se on my fabric as much as I can, because I do the embroidery. So it's more up to what you feel is comfortable for you. So like on the bird that's standing, I will draw his feet in, so I know exactly where to place that embroidery thread. It's just something that I picked up and I do. But like I said, if you don't want to trace the whole detail, all the little details, like on the birdhouse, if you don't want to trace the hanger and you just want to embroider it in, you can. But I know, because if I print this on my machine, my printer, it's going to have all the lines on there, and that's normally what I would do. I would just attach my fabric to wax paper, cut it at the 8.5 by 11 to fit my machine, and just print it off. So I hope you got something out of this beginner's video. You know what supplies you need. You've printed off your templates. You've got your fabric. You got them all traced out and ready to go. So until then, happy quilting.